कुमार स्वामी नायकर गोंगो लुबू लटोका रेडियो फीजी 2 में पुराना गाना लगे हमें बहुत अच्छा लगे.
Radio Fiji 2.
In the news tonight, child neglect on the rise. New regulations to govern festivals. And rebuilding schools remains priority, says PM.
From the studios of FBC Suva, Edwin Nunn.
Kuluvinaka, Fiji. A large number of child neglect cases were recorded in the Northern Division at the height of Tropical Cyclone Yasa last month. Mental health specialist Prem Singh says this issue surfaced following their visit to over 210 communities in the last 3 weeks, where they provided counseling and psychological support. Josiah Nanunga reports this issue, if not taken seriously, could risk a child's life.
The safety of a child at the height of any disaster lies at the hands of their parents or guardians, but this was not the case during Tropical Cyclone Yasa last month.
There are some communities whereby we have a lack of supervision for children. So now why I am highlighting this as a child protection related issue is because if we do not monitor the whereabouts of our children, there is a high risk that abuse can take place.
Singh says the children open up sharing their experiences, and majority had mixed emotions and were traumatized.
Also, child protection issues could also include areas such as, like I said, neglect, and also provision of proper nutrition for your children. So this is where we are, identifying the at-risk children in the communities.
A team of counselors will revisit these affected areas to gauge the status of those children who have been identified as needing long-term counseling support.
We have actually identified an increase in the need for long-term trauma counseling support due to grief and loss issues. We've also identified the need for moral support provisions.
To the parents, we give you your assurance that your child will be looked after in our schools. The plea here is to send your child to school. I can totally understand that we will not have 100% attendance tomorrow.
Empower Pacific has so far provided psychological support and counseling to about 191 Fijians, and 4,100 people have received psychological first aid. Josiah Nanunga, FBC News.
And Josiah joins us live now. Josiah, what other findings did Empower Pacific make?
Edwin, Empower Pacific has also stated that counseling and psychosocial support are amongst the forms of assistance that most Fijians in the Mboa and Maduata province still need, even a month after the passing of Yasa. They also highlighted that Fijians in these affected areas who've been counseled revealed that they went through some form of violence or abuse, even those with disabilities. As of the 16th of this month, Edwin, councillors of Empower Pacific have also confirmed that some Fijians with disabilities in these affected areas are not receiving the full support they need.
Josiah, are there any other organizations providing similar support?
Yes, that's definitely right, Edwin. The United Nations has deployed 25 midwives to assist Fijians in these affected areas. And with that in mind, with schools opening tomorrow, the UN has also pledged to provide psychological support for children. Edwin.
Allegations of corruption has led to the introduction of new laws to govern festival committees. The now defunct Hibiscus Events Group has been singled out as an example of what can go wrong when there's no transparency. It may be the mother of all festivals, but Hibiscus was the mother of all headaches for authorities.
Gradually, the committee members were put aside, and this particular person assumed so much powers that he became the sole signatory to all checks.
There's been lack of transparency, lack of accountability, and I've also noticed there's public outcry at times. So when regulations come into force, basically every festival organizers will be guided by that.
Horror stories from the then Hibiscus Events Group don't end there. For years, it presented no audited accounts, and space provided by the Suva City Council was used to run a private business.
He was using that premises for his own gain by selling second-hand clothes as well as parking his rental business.
People who are contributing towards the funding of the festival, they want accountability. Public wants to see where the money is going.
The Festival Regulations 2021 will require all committees to submit annual accounts, manage assets, use public funds wisely, and hold annual elections of committee members. The old run-of-the-mill festivals also need a shake-up.
We were all getting tired of the same rides, same food, same style.
You don't start thinking that you own the festival. So that's one positive thing. In this one here too, I think we are allowing for 2 years maximum.
Some festivals in Fiji have an annual budget of close to $1 million. A new variant of cancer is now being diagnosed among Fijians, which is slowly surpassing the common breast and cervical cancer cases. The Health Ministry is recording an increase in gastrointestinal cancer, with more than 1,000 cases recorded annually. Kelly Vadala reports.
Gastrointestinal cancer includes all cancers in a person's digestive tract organs. If detected or treated late, it can be fatal.
We say gastrointestinal, which includes esophageal cancers, stomach cancers, and cancers of the large bowel or colon cancers. Now, colon cancer is very common in the Western world. It's attributed to the dietary changes, but we're seeing a rise in that here in Fiji.
Dr. Wanganabete says this adds to the 400 cases of cancer they record within a year.
And we have about 100 to 150 that have gastrointestinal cancer. So these are cancers of the esophagus, stomach, liver, pancreas, small bowel, large bowel, and even the appendix. And then lower is prostate cancer and lung cancers.
A diet high in salt and smoked foods, including alcohol, increases the risk of gastrointestinal cancer. The Fiji Cancer Society says people suffering from such cancer may be reluctant to come forward.
I am sure that the numbers are way higher than that. It's just that people are not presenting themselves, making it known that they do have cancer, or they do and then they just don't bother.
The health minister says many Fijians are being diagnosed with cancers of the Western world as opposed to the ones of a young developing country. Kelly Vadala, FBC News.
A quick clarification. I had said that there are 1,000 cases recorded annually. What I should have said was 100 cases or thereabouts are recorded annually. The devastation caused by TC will not hinder the educational needs of students, extending his well wishes on the eve of the new school term. Prime Minister Voreqe Bainimarama says while natural disasters are growing and leaving behind high costs, Fijian children's education will still be a priority. Jeshulal reports.
Prime Minister Voreqe Bainimarama says students resuming classes tomorrow should be rest assured and prepare well for their studies despite the damage caused by TC.
As our students begin their school terms at no cost to their families with free textbooks and subsidized transportation to school, we can rest assured, no matter how difficult our situation may be today, things will get better.
The Fijian government has ensured that students' education remains a priority.
For your government, rebuilding your school is our single highest priority.
Minister for Education Rosie Akbar says schools that were damaged by TC have been repaired semi-permanently. She says those schools that could not be ready on time have been provided temporary learning shelters.
We've tried to make it semi-permanent, and most of the schools have been completed. The work has been carried out by the engineers from the Republic of Fiji Military Forces and the school management.
The Education Minister today officiated at the handover of Ngalo Island Primary School from the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs. The school was one of the worst hit by TC. Jeshulal, FBC News.
Prime Minister Voreqe Bainimarama has told parents in the northern maritime communities affected by TC to get their children back to school, even if they don't have uniforms. While school packs given out contain only stationery, many of the children in these communities are still without uniforms, shoes and bags. Eleanor Turangaivu has more.
With 195,883 students across the country expected to start classes tomorrow, 4 siblings at Tavea Island in Boa are not sure if they will be.
We are not ready. We don't have everything.
17-year-old Sisa Matandingo and his 3 siblings only have school stationery which were donated to them. With their home destroyed by tropical cyclone Yasa and their parents still struggling to earn an income to provide for their needs, the siblings want to be in school tomorrow.
I want to go to school to see my friends and teachers.
Speaking at Kia Island, Madhwata last week, Prime Minister Vorenge Bainimarama says children from the cyclone-affected homes can still attend school even if they do not have everything.
There is a plan we have outlined for children not to worry about their uniform, school shoes, etc. They don't have to have everything to go to school.
The Prime Minister says what's important is the children getting their education and that they be in school come January 19.
If their homes have been affected, whatever they can wear will be fine, as long as they get to school.
Most of the children from these affected communities will be attending schools that were also damaged by tropical cyclone Yasa. Eleanor Turangaibu, FBC News.
Up ahead, families prepare for back to school. And growing interest in local coral export business.
Baik tu dia jadi beratahu रेडियो फीजी बहुत रेडियो फीजी रोज सुनता हूँ
रेडियो फीजी 2 देश की धड़कन.
Welcome back. With school starting tomorrow, parents in Nandi who've been unemployed have done all they can to prepare their children for the new school term. Naomi Senitetevo, a former hotel worker, is excited to send her children to school despite the hardships they are facing as a family. Details with Felipe Necaso.
The 41-year-old mother has been operating a small business from the Vot City flea market with her husband for the past 7 months. However, money earned from what they sell has not been enough.
Right now, we only have afford to buy for 2 of the secondary schools, and we haven't completed yet.
Despite sales not being good at Vot City, the couple have not given up but looked at it as a challenge they can overcome.
Before we were able to buy everything in the house, but during this crisis we've been cutting down things.
The hardships they shared are just the tip of the iceberg of what many parents are facing here at the flea market.
Well, we have to budget. Well, my husband, I'm lucky my husband still has a job, so we have to budget wisely.
Some families are really struggling here in Nandi, and that is the truth. Some families have moved back to the village. I can confirm, as of today, before school started, our family has moved back to Naitasiri.
The reality for parents here at the Vot City market is that they're trying to sell whatever they can to earn money for their families. Felipe Necaso, FBC News.
And Felipe joins us live now from Nandi. Felipe, Nandi residents have been one of the hardest hit by the impact of the pandemic. What has their back-to-school preparations been like?
Well, Edwin, the situation here in Nandi hasn't even improved, with many Fijians still unemployed due to the impacts of COVID-19. And with school starting from tomorrow, majority of parents that I've spoken to have told me that they've had to budget just to ensure that their kids attend the first day of class, because majority of these parents are either unemployed or some have home-based businesses with their income fluctuating. However, they're all not giving up, as despite the hardships they're facing, they've told me that they will make adjustments to ensure their kids are in school from tomorrow. Also, what they're saying is that they've decided not to buy new clothes, new school uniforms rather, new school bags and also new school shoes, and they've just asked their kids to use the old ones from last year. And Edwin, this is just the reality on the ground with what some of the families in Nandi are facing. Majority of them are still struggling to try and put their kids into school from tomorrow.
Naka Felipe. Students of Ngaloa Primary School in Bua are ready to start the new academic year tomorrow, following the opening of a new school building on the island. Ngaloa was one of the islands severely battered by TC Yasa on December 17th last year, and the school suffered extensive damage. School head teacher Rishi Ram says they are waiting for the restoration of water supply to the island, which will take another few days. Members of the Australian Defence Force, representatives of the Republic of the Fiji military and regional education officer opened the newly constructed building today. The school has 2 classrooms and a staff office as well. The ADF also handed over 15 rugby balls and 15 soccer balls to the school. 73 students are expected to enroll this academic term. ADF personnel have assisted more than 30 schools in TCASA affected areas. There is an increase in interest for the export of coral. Permanent Secretary for Environment Joshua Wycliffe says it's a good revenue earner, and they have noted an uptake in the number of applications made for the extraction of coral. Coral are among the most profitable enterprises in the world, with an estimated value of about $20 billion per year. Kritika Kumar reports.
The Environment Ministry Permanent Secretary says studies indicate that the United States is the major importer of corals.
First and foremost, there has to be an environment impact assessment to be done from the site from where they would extract. There would also have to be proper studies made about what species is available where.
Wycliffe says several regulations need to be met before the applications will be approved.
So if we continue to export this year, then we'll get a quota. We are in the process of setting up a quota for this year and the next year as well.
Minister for Environment Dr. Mahendra Reddy says they need to be vigilant about the illegal trade in wildlife, including corals, which is amongst the most profitable enterprise.
While you curb and negate the efforts and effects of illegal trade, please be aware that your action to speak into the economy of a nation. You must be swift to act.
Permanent Secretary for Environment Joshua Wycliffe says the trade should be based on the data. He adds there is also lack of expertise in identifying different types of coral. Kritika Kumar, FBC News.
Farmers in cane belt areas in Nandi are hoping for a better output this season. The past few years have been challenging for many due to the impact of natural disasters as their cane production has declined. Dipesh Kumar reports.
These farmers are looking forward to a better 2021 season.
Last season was really bad because of the cyclone, and this season we have good sugarcane. And if the weather is good, then we will cut more sugarcane.
The sugarcane fields were badly damaged in the cyclone. Before last year, I had 350 tons of sugarcane, and last year was only 250 tons. There was a 100-ton drop because of the 2 cyclones destroyed a lot.
In the last cane season, we were affected by the cyclone and the production was slow, but it looks like this year will be good.
70-year-old Padmawati says due to decline in production, she has diversified into farming as well.
Because of the cyclone, we had to resort to other types of farming such as livestock and vegetables.
Many farmers are planting fresh cane while others are fertilizing their crop. They remain hopeful for good weather to increase their yield. Dipesh Kumar, FBC News.
And let's catch up on today's business with Whitney.
Thanks, Edwin. Coming up in business tonight, property valuers face downturn in business. And steps taken to assist cassava farmers. Stay with us.
कुमार सर नायक है गोमवा लुगु लटोका रेडियो फीजी 2 में पुराना गाना लगे हमें बहुत अच्छा लगे
रेडियो फीजी 2 देश की धड़कन
The property valuers are not that active in the market as they used to be in the previous years. Valuers Registration Board Chair Dr. Abdul Hassan says a different market trend has been developed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Kritika Kumar reports.
A decline in property prices has affected the valuation market.
People are not selling the properties. The market is not that active. So definitely the price will be less, and there will be limited transaction taking place in the properties.
Dr. Hassan says currently they have around 15 active valuers in the market.
There is not much drop in terms of number of valuers that engage in property valuation, but the activities itself has gone down.
The Valuers Registration Board says the general guidelines of valuation needs to be followed to ensure properties are sold at realistic prices. Bayshore Real Estate Director Arif Khan says some owners are trying to utilize the valuation from previous years to sell the properties.
One of the biggest challenges is negotiating
making the landlords and the vendors understand the economic conditions have changed.
Khan adds stakeholders need to work together to facilitate the transactions in the sector. Kritika Kumar, FBC News.
We now join Sharon from HFC Bank with the latest from the money market.
Good evening. A quick look at trades on our local stock exchange for last week. A total of 93 transactions with about 30,700 shares were traded, valued at around $67,000. This saw the South Pacific Stock Exchange record a notable increase of 2.14% in their overall market value, mainly due to the positive price movement noted for the largest security by way of market share. Elsewhere, the Asian share markets retreated from earlier highs as disappointing news on U.S. consumer spending tempered risk sentiment. Japan's Nikkei slipped 1% and away from a 30-year high, while the E-mini futures for the S&P 500 dipped 0.3% and the Wall Street remained closed for a holiday today. The week ahead will be fairly flat on the economic data front, but there seems to be a lot of hype around COVID vaccines and the stimulus package for the U.S. So let's see how the market tone settles in for the coming days. But that's all from HFC Bank for now. Pinaka.
Here the local exchange rates are set early this morning. The Fiji dollar strengthened against the neighboring Aussie and Kiwi dollars, as well as the PNG Kina. It lost ground to the Chinese yuan, US greenback, euro, and the Japanese yen. The commodities were on a decline across the board. Oil prices dropped the dollar, closing at $51 a barrel. Gold dropped to $1,824 per ounce, and silver closed down at $24.77 an ounce. Cassava farmers are urged to take advantage of the value-adding opportunities from markets that will ensure their crops is put to good use. This as many farmers are facing challenges with the supply as a direct consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic and recent tropical cyclone Yasa. Tapioca Growers Association President Josiah Rayawa says they will prioritize demand for markets and at the same time ensure food security. He adds despite the current challenges, they will continue to initiate new market strategies to ensure these businesses stay afloat.
We want to extend beyond that, to create a new industry to supply value-added opportunities, for farming.
And that's it from Business Tonight. We now join Jamie with the latest in sports.
Thank you and good evening. Ahead in sports, Dominion brothers prepare for tough pool. And sanctioned local meets for Olympic hopefuls. This and more coming up.
मरसानी नाइकर गोम्बा लुबु लटोका रेडियो फीजी 2 में
The Giants of Under-27s rugby in Fiji, Dominion Brothers, is relishing the opportunity to take on the big guns in Leg 1 of the Super 7 series in Singatoka this weekend. While the club mainly participated and dominated the age grade division in Major Sevens tournaments last year, including the Marist, Tambandamu, Coral Coast and Sabu Sabu Sevens, this won't be its first time competing in the senior division. Benina Rakautonga reports.
Since playing against local giants in sevens, the furthest this team has reached is the eliminations.
Our minimum is to reach the top 4 of the Super Series, and we'll see it from there. If it goes to the main cup final, we'll be glad.
The Dominion brothers have tough teams in their pools like Ulunakau Babas, Ami and Nawaka, and they're not backing down from any challenge.
We'll just take one team at a time and counting all the games as a final. So going into our pool games, first game against Ami and all of these team, we'll be seeing all the teams as top guns.
20-year-old Irimaya Ketiniveres says it is not only about physical fitness, but mental fitness is as equally important.
We'll be the first time playing against like top teams, so we'll be accepting some good brutal hits and all of that. So we are looking forward to it, and we are training ourselves to be on our mindset ready come on the weekend.
The side will play its first match against Army at 9 a.m. on Friday. Benina Rakotonga, FBC Sports.
With regional qualifying tournaments for archery and swimming shelved due to the pandemic, Fijian athletes from the two sports have been given the opportunity to qualify for the Tokyo Olympic Games via local competitions. Tali Materukula explains.
New standards have to be met by these archers to qualify for the Olympic Games.
A series of 6 competitions at our World Archery Registered events for our local elite athletes to compete in. So these will make them eligible to shoot minimum qualifying scores for the Olympics.
Archers will need to gain 640 points in 720 rounds to qualify for the Olympics.
Holding a national tournament that will still give them the opportunity to gain the points to qualify for the Olympics. And they're going to be hosting that tournament here in Suva in February, March.
Apart from archery, swimming is another sport where athletes can qualify for the Tokyo Olympic Games through local competitions.
Other sports that have had to already cancel their international events, of course, was swimming. But the local event now has been approved to be held for qualifying.
Archers will compete in a series of 6 competitions from the 7th of next month until April 16th. Tale Materukula, FBC Sports.
The Rewa Football Association will be filing a formal complaint against the Waisake Navuningasau to the Fiji Football Association this week. Navuningasau has requested the shift from Rewa to Suva in the pre-season transfer window. However, Rewa Football claims he has failed to meet certain requirements of his current contract and is seeking compensation before signing his release. Caroline Itavi has more.
Rewa wants to settle the issue before the transfer window closes.
We have some issues with that, which we will be raising with Fiji Football. There was some advance taken and the contracts were not done. So we will be lodging a complaint on that.
President Azil Bak says Navuningasau is free to join any club of his choice, but first he must pay the amount he owes the club.
The player is, if he's willing to represent Suva, he is free to represent. But whatever his contractual agreement was, he needs to abide by that, or give Rewa Football a compensation based on that.
Another club also recruiting new players is Nandronga. Head coach Ramesh Sharma says the door is open for any players from other districts to join them for the 2021 season.
We have actually been not having plans to recruit some big names, but any player who is interested to join Nandronga in the Premier Division, we welcome them with open arms. Plus, we have our own boys who have worked hard in the 2020 season.
The pre-season transfer window will close on January 31st. Carlini Tavi, FBC Sports.
South Pacific Boxing Promotions will beef up drug tests at its upcoming event in March. Promoter Freddie Chand says they've always done drug tests at all boxing events, but this time they've revised their steps. Chand says selected boxers will be checked before going in for their fight. This follows a concern raised by professional boxer Joseph Kwajo. Kwajo had called out promoters to ensure checks are being conducted efficiently.
We are not testing everybody, but out of all bouts, 4 of the bouts are regularly tested, as all the sports are starting with this. This is the new system we have implemented in boxing.
Manchester United remains on top of the English Premier League after holding champions Liverpool to a 0-0 draw at Anfield today. Liverpool dominated possession in the first half, but it was United who came closest when Bruno Fernandes' 20-yard free kick curled inches wide. The draw leaves United at 37 points, 2 points ahead of Leicester City in second. In play of the day, former Fiji Sevens rep Eroni Sau continues to show why he was dubbed the Sledgehammer, scoring an impressive try for Edinburgh on Saturday in the Pro 14 competition. That's it from Sports Tonight. In new media, Amazon faces class action over e-book pricing. Details coming up.
मैं तो दिल्ली में रहता हूँ और रेडियो फीजी रेडियो फीजी रोज सुनता हूँ.
रेडियो फीजी 2 देश की धड़कन.
Welcome back. In new media, Amazon was slapped with a class action lawsuit accusing the e-commerce giant of inflating the prices of e-books in collusion with some publishers.
Amazon faces a class action suit over e-book pricing. The e-commerce giant is accused of inflating prices in collusion with the 5 largest publishers in the US. The firms allegedly agreed to price restraints on e-books purchased from them through a retail platform other than Amazon. That may have left consumers overpaying. Earlier this week, the state of Connecticut said it was investigating Amazon for potential anti-competitive behaviour in digital books. There was no comment on the latest reports from the online retailer. According to the lawsuit, about 90% of e-books are sold through Amazon. The action has been brought by law firm Hagens Berman. Back in 2011, it filed a similar suit against Apple and the so-called Big Five publishers.
Mostly fine weather prevailed across the country today. In the west, a hot day, but it turned cloudy by late afternoon, a chance of scattered showers late at night. Eastwards from Pacific Harbour to Suva, a blend of sun and clouds with a shower in spots this afternoon. And up north, mostly sunny and humid conditions prevailed. At sea, moderate northerly winds, moderate seas. Turning to the tides, the next high tide is at 10:38 p.m, followed by low tide at 5 tomorrow morning. Sunrise is at 6:45. For tomorrow, fine apart from afternoon or evening showers and isolated thunderstorms. And looking ahead, cloudy periods with some showers and isolated afternoon or evening thunderstorms. And in Fijian Pulse tonight, we ask, are you prepared for back to school tomorrow?
Like my kids are ready to go to school. I have did all the shopping. So from tomorrow they're almost ready to school.
Yes, my preparation for my kids back to school is ready. I'm done my shopping.
I'm going well. I'm ready for study school tomorrow, so yeah, it should be fine.
Been doing shopping here and around town, and we look forward for my daughter's going back to school. This is the first time to going to the boarding school in ACS.
In the world of the weird and the wonderful, how would you feel if you were admitted to a hospital and got served cannabis cuisine? Well, for that, you may have to travel to Thailand.
If you're thinking to yourself, that looks like some cannabis leaves on toast, you'd be 100% correct. But this isn't some hip eatery in California or one of the other U.S. states where marijuana is legal. This is a restaurant inside a hospital in Thailand. Cannabis was recently delisted as a narcotic by the Southeast Asian country just last month, allowing certain government-authorized organizations to cultivate it. And this hospital, just east of Bangkok, just so happens to be one of those authorized organizations. Their new menu offerings include the Joyful Dancing Salad, Giggling Bread, and Happily Sipping Pork Soup, just to name a few. The project's leader and a researcher at the hospital says when used in small amounts in food, it can be used as a remedy, helping patients recover faster, as it can improve appetites and help them sleep better, as well as putting them in a good mood. And the cannabis menu seems to be a hit with patrons as well, with one saying, quote, "My review of the effects after eating, it makes my throat dry, and I crave sweets."
Recapping our main stories, child neglect on the rise. New regulations to govern festivals and rebuilding schools remains a priority, says PM. For these stories and others, you can tune in daily to our sister radio station, Gold FM. To our poll question, last week we asked, should loans and scholarships for medical studies be suspended this year? 54% answered yes. This week we are asking, should next year's daylight saving be extended for a longer period? Visit our FBC News website to answer. And on to our shot of the day. A beautiful day in the capital city, captured by Shivam Shavnil Sharma at Nasese. You can send us newsworthy pictures and videos on email fbcnews@fbc.com.fj or share it with us via our various social media accounts, including Facebook, Twitter, and we're on Instagram. That's your news for this evening. I'll see you again tomorrow. Until then, stay safe. Modemanda.
कुमार सानी नायक है गोमगो लुगु लटो का रेडियो फीजी 2 में पुराना गाना लगे हमें बहुत अच्छा लगे।
रेडियो फीजी 2 देश की धड़कन।